Today on a Gryf Special Report edition of GTFO. The Overwatch World Cup match between Team USA and Team Canada just concluded, with the United States pulling out a close 3-1 victory. With the Los Angeles group stage now over, I'll be giving my thoughts on the USA vs Canada match, as well as choosing 5 of the lesser known players from the LA group stage who I think would make great additions for Season 2 of the Overwatch League. I'm Gryf, and let's break it down. Alright, so as I said in the intro, first and foremost, we're going to be talking about the United States versus Canada matchup that literally just finished a few minutes ago. It was an incredible match. We saw a ton of different strats come out. We even got to see an interview between Jane and Arrow, the coaches for the two teams, where they kind of discussed strategy and things like that, and it was all very cool. The United States did manage to close things out with that 3-1 victory. I'm going to be breaking it down map by map, kind of giving my thoughts on everything that was going on. But before we actually get into that, just to address kind of the trash talk between the teams, because there was a bit of that early on before the matchup. It was all in good fun, but it was definitely entertaining. I would love to see more of that, in the future of not just the World Cup, but Overwatch League as well. I think that kind of stuff definitely does make everything more entertaining. It kind of raises the stakes in the matchup. So it was pretty cool to see that between the teams. It was definitely entertaining. Another story going into this, too, was obviously the coaching matchup between Jane for Team Canada and Arrow for Team USA, two incredible coaches, so a lot of focus was, on that matchup, and I think based on what we saw during this game, definitely both coaches did an incredible job with these teams. We're going to be seeing more of them because both of them are going to be moving on to the BlizzCon Top 8 World Cup. But it was definitely a lot of fun to see what both teams were able to bring to the table as far as strategies go. So great job to both Jane and Arrow with the coaching there. But with that being said, heading into the first map, which was Oasis, this was one of the closer maps in the series. The US was able to pull out a win on this map. It was definitely, there was some interesting stuff going on because we did get to see Sinatra playing Reinhardt, which the casters were saying, I believe it was Mr. X, was saying that he did kind of expect just based on what he saw on Sinatra's stream. But I was definitely surprised by this because I don't watch Sinatra's stream. It was definitely cool to see him going up against XQC on the Reinhardt, and in a lot of cases he did actually get the better of XQC on that main tank role, which was super interesting. Muma as well, playing Winston, also looked very strong during this map. I think the tank line for the USA in general, including Sinatra and then also with Space, was very, very strong throughout the entirety of the series. And I think on this map, that was kind of what pulled things, what allowed the USA to pull ahead and claim Map 1 Oasis. Map 2, we moved to Kings Row, and this one was not nearly as close. The USA did actually first hold and then go on to win it. Muma continued to look very strong. There was even a play where Transcendence was used by Crimzo, and Muma was using Primal Rage, and he was up on the high ground. The entirety of Team Canada was fighting on point, and he was just kind of bopping him away, not letting him get that Transcendence healing down onto the point, and it was a super interesting play. Muma obviously very good with the Winston. I just remember that play and thinking that Muma was kind of picking Team Canada apart. On Team Canada, though, there was definitely a lot of solid play as well, especially from Surefour playing on the Sombra. He was getting a lot of EMPs, getting a lot of clutch hacks. He probably, I would say, looked the best of the Team Canada players. I'm going to get into that a little bit more at the end, but he was doing very well on this map. But still, the USA was just very dominant on Kings Row, and they took a 2-0 lead in the set going into Map 3. Map 3 was Temple of Anubis, and Canada brought things back on this map in a big way. Agilities, in particular, had been playing a lot of Brigida, but he made a switch to Doomfist during this map, and his Doomfist started popping off in a big way through the latter half of this series for sure. But I would say the big stars for Canada were actually the support line of Bonnie and Crimzo. Bonnie on the Ana was hitting really important sleeps, especially on Muma. They really started seeming like they were trying to shut down Muma. They were focusing him down on his dives a bit more, because the prior two maps, Muma had just been kind of walking all over them, but now definitely with Bonnie hitting the sleep darts and just the rest of the team peeling back, they were really shutting him down. And then Crimzo was finding a lot of frags on Zenyatta as well. So the support line, the back line for Canada, was doing an incredible job, and I think that really helped them to take this map. They rolled both points with 2 minutes left, and they really, like I said, seemed to be focusing Muma's dives down, which helped them a ton. Interesting enough for me was that the USA didn't use their Hammond strategy, which we'd seen in the past. Maybe they thought it was only good enough to work against teams that weren't as ready for it. But Jane had actually mentioned in the halftime interview that he did that they were kind of struggling to counter it because they didn't have opportunities to scrim against either Fusion University or Team USA, which were the two teams that kind of ran that Hammond strategy. So it was interesting to me that they didn't run that on defense like we had seen them do in the past. But that's just kind of my thoughts on that. Then on the USA's attack, they were almost first held, and then Space hit this massive Diva Bomb, I think it was a 3 or 4 man, to save the point. It really seemed like they were going to be able to roll into second and set a good time and be able to, bring it to more points. But in the end, Canada was able to hold. Like I said, a lot of good play from Surefour. And again, the Canada backline was looking really strong. Lots of sleep darts again from Bonnie. He looked amazing. Then map 4 was Rialto. We got some different looks here from the teams. Hydration moved on to the Pharah. Like I said, Agilities played a bit more Doomfist, and he was really popping off during this map. This was a really fun one to watch because on the USA's attack, they nearly got held, but just barely were able to pull out the fights on all 3 of the points. Like first point, pushing the payload, they almost got held, but they were able to win it in the last fight. Second point, same thing, all the way up to the end of the map, but they were able to capture all 3 points, push the payload all the way to the end. Thanks to some clutch plays from Muma, who seemed to be kind of back in a position where he was able to play a little bit more. Hydration was getting some key hacks. Like I remember there was a play near the end of third where Hydration actually got a hack on Surefour, who had EMP, and then they were able to peel back and kill Surefour because he couldn't get out with his abilities, so they were able to get him there. So Hydration was getting those hacks. I do think Surefour played a better Sombra overall over the course of the series, but Hydration did play really well, and like I said, got some really important hacks. USA was able to close out the map on Canada's push. They did not make all 3 points, again, due to good play all around from US, but especially from the tanks and from the DPS. And in the end, the USA was able to close things out with that 3-1 victory. And then I just want to touch on the best players, as far as I could tell, from each team. Obviously, I've talked a lot about Muma. I think he was incredible for Team USA. Space as well. The tank line was really, really strong for Team USA. And then Sinatra, who I haven't really talked about a lot, I do want to give him a shout out because he was flexing to a ton of different heroes. He was playing, the Zarya, he was playing the Brigida, he was playing the Tracer, just, playing whatever his team needed him to, and he looked really strong as well. When it came to Team Canada, definitely, like I've said, the back line was incredible. Surefour really, really, really good on the Sombra, and then Agilities, once he was able to go to that Doomfist, had a lot of success, especially on Rialto. I don't think that XQC and Note necessarily played bad. They had their clutch plays, individually, but I definitely think they weren't as strong as the tank line for the US, and that's really what gave the United States the edge in this matchup. So that's all for the game between the United States and Team Canada, but now something I want to do is talk about the top 5 lesser-known players from the LA group stage, from teams that weren't necessarily the United States and Canada, but who still looked really, really strong and could potentially be playing in the Overwatch League during Season 2 or sometime in the future. I'm not necessarily saying these players are going to be in the league, but I think they definitely have the potential to move up onto Overwatch League teams. First and foremost, honorable mentions are going to go to Mangachu, Zachary, and Onigod, who are all obviously incredible contenders talent, but I think they're a bit too well known to be featured on a list like this. I want to be kind of highlighting players who you might not know as well, who looked really, really strong. So first, at number 5, we have Eclipse from Team Austria, and he was a support. He had some incredible, impressive Ana play, which is definitely an important thing to consider coming into the upcoming meta, which is going to be seeing a ton of Ana. One thing I always harp on when it comes to players, support players anyway, is being an active support player or being a passive support player, which is like, are you getting value out of all of your abilities? And I think Eclipse was really, really good, getting value from all parts of his kit, the sleep dart, the bionade, and then just his general healing with the rifle. I think his biggest thing was just being able to get value out of all of those different things, and that's why I have him at number 5 on this list. Going down to number 4, we have Lux from Team Switzerland. Lux was a very flexible DPS player, which I think is very important, especially in this current meta we have where you can see all kinds of different looks. You can see, multiple tank looks, all different kinds of DPS. I think flexibility is going to be very important heading into Season 2 of the Overwatch League. We saw him touch heroes like Widowmaker, Mei, Tracer, Zarya at times, and he was popping off against some of the stronger teams like the USA, Canada, Brazil. So to me, he was definitely the most impressive player from the Swiss team by a bit of a margin, and that's why he is at number 4 on our list. Moving to number 3, I had Neil from Brazil. He was the main tank player, and specifically what stood out for me was his Reinhardt play, which was just super impressive. He was constantly fragging in the kill feed. You'd look at the feed when Brazil was popping off, and it would just be like Reinhardt, like 4 kills for Neil. He was incredible, got tons of shatters. One thing to note too is that he was supported by a very strong backline on the Brazilian team with Alamo, however you say it, and Olay, who were both really, really good. Alamo on the Lucio and Olay on the Zenyatta. And Neil was out here standing up to some top-level main tanks like SQC and Muma in their matchups. Obviously, Brazil wasn't able to get the victories or even take a map off of Canada, but Neil was looking super impressive during all of it in the main tank role. He got the better of some really, really good main tanks, and for that reason, he's going to be number 3 on the list. Moving down to number 2, we have Track from Norway. The thing about Track is that he does lack some of the flexibility, at least from what we saw of some other DPS players, which I know I just said flexibility is very important. However, I think he really, really shined on the Genji. We saw him touch Sombra a bit, play a good amount of Brigitte, but his Genji play was just lighting teams up. He farmed ults so fast, he found tons of kills, and his Dragon Blades were incredible. And he was in a DPS duo with Onigod, and lots of times he was the one popping off more than his DPS partner, which I think is very impressive. I just think he looked really, really strong, constantly fragging for Team Norway. For that reason, he is number 2 on the list. Finally, at number 1, we have Alamo. I still don't know how to say his name exactly, from Brazil, but he was so good. We mentioned earlier how strong the Brazilian backline was, and he was a huge part of this. He enabled Neil's main tank play on that Reinhardt. He enabled his team to do so much. His Lucio was incredible, especially when it came to the use of his ult. He was able to maneuver around the EMPs, which we're kind of in like a Sombra meta right now, and he always seemed to have a sound barrier at the perfect times to get out of line of sight of the EMP, pull it out just when his team needs it, just when they got EMP'd, and just made some incredibly clutch plays on the Lucio. And with Lucio becoming so much more of a meta pick, in the current meta that we have, he would be an incredible addition to any Overwatch team. For that reason, he is the number 1 player from this LA group stage who I think definitely deserves a spot in the Overwatch League. That's all from me today. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to go leave a like on this, drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on things, and subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more Overwatch and Overwatch League content. I'm Gryf, and this has been GTFO.